For more analysis, let's go to Middle East analyst Debra Shushan. Debra, first of all, great having you. Thank you for joining us. Why do you believe that a direct U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear program would be a mistake?
Well, thank you very much for having me. These are obviously extremely concerning times. Obviously, President Trump has been very clear that he is considering using the U.S. B-2 bombers and our capability to use bunker-busting bombs to try to take out the Fordo enrichment site. My concern is that there are always unintended consequences, or very frequently are, to military action. I would certainly hope that the Trump administration is very carefully considering not just a military attack, but what comes after it, how our government makes sure that there isn't a dramatic escalation with all of the attendant dangers within the region, including to U.S. military personnel. And I think what we have seen in the past is that there has been one thing that has successfully put a stop to Iran's nuclear program. It wasn't perfect. There was no way to achieve an absolutely perfect agreement, but nonetheless, we had a nuclear agreement in place that was a hard-fought achievement by the Obama administration that had put an end to Iran's nuclear program, that had put in place verification measures, robust measures, and unfortunately, the Trump administration, the first time around, President Trump decided to pull out of that agreement. And now here we are back in this cycle. And I think it's extremely important. We've already seen hundreds and hundreds of lives lost, most of them Iranians, but also Israeli civilians as well. And I'm certainly very concerned for my own friends and family in Israel. And I would like us to do everything possible to bring this military escalation to a close and find a way through diplomacy to put Iran's nuclear program back in a box in the way that it was, even if we're not going to be able to return to the JCPOA. That is unfortunately now obsolete, but I think it's extremely important to figure out how we get back to a diplomatic pathway.
Yes, Debra,
and I am encouraged.
On this, you're touching on a very interesting issue, because how should the U.S. balance deterrence, right? Its primary U.S. interest to avoid an escalation in terms of nuclear capabilities, but with diplomatic restraint in the region. How do you see that?
Look, I think the Iranian regime has had a week now in which it has been very badly battered, both its nuclear program, its military assets, and so coercion, military coercion, more than deterrence, has already very much been used by the Israelis with the backing of the Americans. I think the Iranians have every reason to come back to the negotiating table and perhaps be willing to make some concessions that they had not been willing to make previously. And I think it's a very positive thing that tomorrow the E3 countries, Britain, France, and Germany, who were parties to the P5+1 agreement with Iran under the JCPOA, are going to be having some diplomatic conversations in Geneva with Foreign Minister Araghchi. I think it's a positive thing that President Trump has indicated that he's giving himself a 2-week window in which to make any decision. And I think, there's some space here for the key players to take a step back if they're willing to do so. And I think that is extremely important at this stage.
We'll see what comes out of that. Debra Shushan, thank you so much for your time and insights.